Dan Satterberg. He's a University of Washington grad with a degree in political science and journalism, got his law degree from the UW, and went on to serve as chief of staff for Norm Mailing for 17 years before being elected King County prosecutor in 2007. Dan brings a level of compassion to the prosecutor's position that is unmatched anywhere in the country. He's committed to improving public safety and the reform of the criminal justice system through partnership with the communities most impacted by crime. And by the way, Dan plays bass and sings in the classic rock cover band, The Approximations. Hi everyone, I'm Tony Ventrella. Welcome to King County Conversations, and my guest is King County Prosecutor Dan Satterberg, whom I've known since he was a young man.
It was about that big, yeah. It's great to be with you.
And you're still quite young, can I just say that? So an interesting year for you as you are, I don't want to say coming down the home stretch, because you got 10, 11 months to go here, a lot of work ahead. How do you balance knowing that at the end of the 11 months, you'll be moving on to another part of your life? And boy, there's so much to do now.
Well, you know, I did make the decision that after 37 years in the office and 15 as the elected, that this would be my last. But, and I intend to run through the tape. You know, I want to make this count, and I know exactly how many days left I have. I have a little calendar that helps me with that, because there is a lot to do, and I have to lean into the work of the office so that when I do turn over the keys to my successor, that we're in a better place than we are right now. This pandemic time has been very difficult for the criminal justice system, both in having to deal with the capacity, you know, not getting as many cases through court. We've got issues with the jail and having to keep population down. It obviously has affected people and at home, my employees who have to take care of small children or elderly people. And the thing that I didn't anticipate out of the pandemic would be this spike in gun violence. That's been the really disturbing and unanticipated response.
And yet, as you think about it, there's a connection, because people are frustrated or whatever the reason is, and I don't want to make excuses for anyone. You've got a couple of sides to that issue, obviously. The gun violence, how do you stop it? There are those who will come from a hardcore stance, well, you know, more jail time, but we need to be tougher on crime. And then the other side, he goes, well, wait a minute. Why don't we work on what causes the crime in the first place? And finding a delicate balance, I would guess, is something you've done your whole career.
Well, you're right, and there's always people in the community who have a different expectation for what they want from their prosecutor. And when I started in 1985, and I was a small child back then, you know, I think we saw our job as getting the maximum sentence in every case. That was sort of drilled into us. That's what you do. And over the years, I realized that's a very narrow view of what we can do. We exercise a great deal of power in deciding who gets charged, what they get charged with, how many charges they get, whether we take a plea or go to trial, what we ask the judge to sentence somebody to. And we can structure, by the charges that we make, we can structure what that ultimate sentence is going to be. So the judge doesn't have as much discretion in the Washington state system as they might in others. And so once, I think when I became the prosecutor after serving with Norm Mailing for 22 years as his chief of staff, and you know, I learned a lot from him. And one of the things was that we had to respect the power that we wield and have a little bit of humility to know that even though these cases come to us, that doesn't mean that they come to us because we're the best option and that the maximum sentence is what they need. Sometimes they come to us because there's nothing else. Yeah. We haven't built the behavioral health infrastructure. We haven't got other alternatives or diversion alternatives. So as I leave after almost 4 decades, I am proud of some of the things that we've built that give us options when cases come to us, not the violent crimes, but other cases of people who are struggling with drug abuse or mental illness, that we can find somewhere else for them to go and get help, and that, you know, jail isn't our only answer for everybody. There's the old saying that, you know, if you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, and so I think we have more tools in our tool belt than we used to.
Well, that's obviously that's encouraging. I think for all of society, that's encouraging.
Let me say about gun violence, I didn't mean to duck that question. It's very perplexing, and as I look at, one of my regrets over 37 years is that we haven't made more progress there. And in fact, gun sales continue to set records through the pandemic. Guns have never been hard to get, and young people can get them easily. And it seems to me that so many of the shootings follow a very petty provocation. And now with social media, they can insult each other online, and then when they see each other, then they have to do something. And there's very much of a machismo about gun usage as well. But one of the things that I think can work, and that we're experimenting with, and that the county is funding, are people who I call credible messengers. People who've lived the life, maybe they've been in prison, maybe they were in a gang, but now they want to help young people avoid the same problems that they have. So we're funding credible messengers to work with people who are highly at risk of gun violence. And we keep the statistics in my office of the shots fired every year. And we've just put out our 5th shots fired report, and it showed a 56% increase in the number of people being shot here last year. So that's obviously very scary. So how do you do that? How do you dissuade people from picking up a gun? They're not going to listen to what a prosecutor or a judge says, but they might listen to somebody who grew up in their neighborhood, who grew up with chaos of poverty, who understands the pressure that young people go through. And so we're funding people who can go do that work, and we're giving them the names of people who we think are highly at risk of gun violence and letting them work their magic. I think the community has powers of persuasion that don't exist in the courtroom, and I want to tap that as much as I can in my last year.
Are you finding that the credible messengers are stepping forward?
Absolutely. Not everybody wants to work with kids who carry guns, right? That's kind of hard work. The Boys and Girls Club doesn't want those folks there. But there are good people in the community who, and the only thing is, we need to pay them. This is public safety work. We can't just ask the nonprofit to do this, spare time kind of thing. This has to be public safety job. They have to have standards, and they have to have some training and understand motivational interviewing and all of those things. When you're trying to convince a young person to put their gun down and to think of life, that maybe they could go to college or get a job doing something else, or they all want to do something else, but they're trapped in this endless cycle of violence and retaliatory violence, and we need to interrupt that. So paying community members to be violence interrupters is a really good strategy, and there's evidence behind it, and we're just getting started on that here.
I would think that is money very well invested, and you're right, the nonprofits do all they can to a point, but to me there'd be nothing more effective than to have someone step forward who's walked in those shoes before. I want to ask you, I know that when someone served their time and they're out of prison, it would sure be nice to keep it that way.
Yes.
But jobs, now where do you go from there? Someone that's had a record has to go get a job. Does a partnership with business help in that way? I mean, I know certain businesses who do hire what they call second chance employees.
We all should think about prison as a one and done experience. We don't want to send people back. They don't want to go back. If you met them at the gate on the day they were being released and said, "Hey, we looking forward to coming back," nobody would say, "Yeah, I can't wait." However, 1 out of 3 people are back in prison within 3 years in Washington State. So we have a recidivism problem here. We don't invest enough money in reentry. And the reentry supports, it's not rocket science, it's social science, so it's a lot harder. It means, what do they need to succeed? They need a place to live, they need some hope, they need a job or some education, and they probably need some other things. They might need some behavioral health supports or some other medical supports or whatever, but investing in that is so much smarter than waiting for them to come back and continuing to pack the prison full of people. I serve on a statewide reentry council, which created about 6 years ago by the legislature, to bring to the legislature ideas about how to invest in just what you're saying, a second chance, another, when someone gets out, let's help them, still, and everybody gets it, but still the basic program for someone getting out of prison is they get $40 and some clean clothes and an ID card. Yeah. And they get a trip to the county where they were convicted, whether they want to go there or not. Yeah. And so no surprise, after day one, your $40 is gone, and now what? Yeah. So unless they've got family and supports, and people who've served a long time, many of them have outlived their family, or their families have disowned them, so they don't really have a place to go. We need to do better on reentry, and that's something that I think is part of the criminal justice reform horizon, right? We need to fix what happens in prison so that it's a place where people can get better, where their trauma can be addressed, where they can learn some skills. We need to bring the internet into prison, not unfettered access, but so people can learn how to use a computer. Because when you go out to apply for a job, nobody does it on paper anymore. And so we need to give them some basic skills inside, and then support people for a limited period of time, even 6 months to a year, that when they first get out, to give them the kind of advantage that they need to avoid coming back. So often they get out there, they can't get a job, they can't get student loans, they can't get anything because they got a felony on their record, the door is slammed in their face, and pretty soon after that door slams in your face enough times, you'll stop knocking on the door and you'll go back to the thing that you knew.
Sure.
And that's the thing that got you in trouble in the first place.
Well, it sounds like just a great approach, a very hopeful approach. You've got to look at it that way. And in your time that you have left to serve, you're obviously heading in that direction in a big way. We have about a half a minute to go. I want to ask you about the approximations, about your singing career. Now, are you just going to go full blast into that one? This is...
Well, I've been playing in a rock band since I was about 16 years old.
Wow.
And
20 years.
Yeah, thank you. Set it aside to have babies and have a career, and then when I was 40, at my 40th birthday, we got the band back together, and we've really, for the last 22 years now, have had a working classic rock cover band, and it's been so much fun. And I do what I do in the approximations. I do what I do at the prosecutor's office. I surround myself with people who are a lot better than me. I play the bass and I hold it back there and I do some singing, but we've got great musicians and who can take us places. Now, COVID has taken an impact
Sure.
on live music, but I still have drums in my basement, and I still have guitars, and I still want to play because that's what makes me think I'm 18 again.
Well, and I think that's the way to live your life. I'm going to give you an opportunity. We're talking with King County Prosecutor Dan Satterberg to ask me a question. You only have a few seconds for this because I may not know the answer.
All right. Well, usually I would read you your rights first, that you'd have the right to remain silent, but you don't here. You're on TV. I want to know about, because I remember growing up as a small child, seeing you on TV doing the wrestling hold of the week. Well, first of all, how did that happen? And second of all, how come we don't get more coverage of pro wrestling on local news?
Darn, that's a great question. I went over to the old Seattle Arena one time in 1982 when I started at King 5, and I watched the wrestlers. And I'm thinking, this is so fantastic because they're athletes, even better athletes today than they were then. But they're making it look like they're injured, and there's this little thing that makes it look like blood. I'm going, we have to get this on TV. Sports is too serious. And our teams weren't very good in the early 80s. So I had to do something to get attention. And I went on one night, took a clip off Channel 11, whatever the channel was, called it Wrestling Hold of the Week, did it in slow motion as if it was that important that it had to be slowed down. And then on the bottom of the screen, we would always put the little message, please do not try this at home. And it caught on for about 5 years, which amazed me because frankly, I haven't done anything since. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No, if I got you in this hold.
I need the little blood thing. Thank you so much. That was cool.